Hi there, this is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, and welcome to another episode of In the Frame. Today I'm just going to have a little chat about the essential Jacques Demy. This is a Criterion box set. The spine number is 713, but the 6 films have their own individual spine numbers, 714 to 719. Now, Jacques Demy is a filmmaker wasn't really that familiar with, but I had a kind of image of what his films would be. Obviously, Umbrellas of Cherbourg and The Young Girls of Rochefort, which are in this box set, they're always kind of voted and quite highly in lists of the greatest films ever made, greatest French films ever made, greatest art house films ever made. Just they're generally on those lists, and I had a certain idea in my head of what his films would be like, and some of these ideas were exactly what I thought they'd be like. Very much like Fellini, who I don't have a lot of experience with, but I watched 8.5 and it's exactly what I thought it would be. Moments of genius mixed with moments of self-indulgence. I don't have a lot of experience with Antonioni, but I had an idea in my head of what Antonioni is, and I watched L'Avventura and it was exactly what I thought it would be. I'm not as high on L'Avventura as other people are. So Jacques Demy, again, I had some preconceptions of what his films might be like, and some of them came true. This isn't going to be my usual glowing review of a film or films. This is going to be an honest appraisal of this box set. Again, my opinion is not fact. We all come to films differently, but probably half of this box set I had the exact same expression that Jacques Demy has on the front of the box. But let's talk about them, shall we? It's a nice little box. I really bought this set for one film, which I'll talk about, and then I saw the set was quite cheap on eBay. I think I got it for, so I just decided to have a plump and buy the box set. It is a Region B, and again we get a nice booklet with lots of essays and images. Obviously Demy was survived by his wife Agnes Varda. There's a lot of good reading to be had. The extras are really good as well. So we'll start, because I think they do go chronological, with number 714, which is Lola. And for me, there's a distinct line in this box set of films that I really enjoyed, and films that I think are really good, and some other films that I perhaps don't think that. The individual films are fairly basic, the thin cardboard sleeves. Lola's from 1961, 88 minutes. This has a 2K restoration, an interview with Anouk Ami, who plays Lola, conducted by Agnes Varda. There's an interview with Varda from 2012. There's 4 short films by Jacques Demy, Les Horizon More from 1951, Le Saboteur de Val de l'Air from 1956, Airs from 1959, and Luxure from 1962. There's a restoration demonstration and the trailer. This is his first film, and it's about a dancer who's a single mother who befriends Mark Michelle, who is just a kind of wastrel almost. She has the father of her son is away but may return at some point. She's friends with an American sailor, and it's one of Demy's more grounded films, and it's really good. There's just lots of scenes of them wandering around Nantes, which is Jacques Demy's hometown. It's just that quintessential French new wave thing of just people wandering about town, that Louis Malle did really well in Elevator to the Gallows. Jean-Pierre Melville did really well in pretty much all of his films. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think that Demy was making these films the same time Melville was kind of down the street making his steely, cool masterpieces. Again, it has a lovely melancholy to it. It's a really nice debut, and certainly one of the films in the set that I'll be revisiting. Next we have from 1963, Bay of Angels, with Jean Moreau. This is my favourite film out of the set. It's the most kind of grounded one. I think it's the quote unquote deepest one. This is about a young man, played by Claude Mann, whose friend has just bought a new car, and he tells him it's because he won lots of money gambling. So he kind of falls into the world of gambling, and he meets Jean Moreau, who is essentially a gambling addict. And they end up going to Nice, and they end up going to Monte Carlo briefly, I think. Jean Moreau's blonde, which you don't see very often. And again, they win money, they lose money, they win money, they lose money. Jean Moreau is kind of trapped in this world. She's always talking about how she's just going to win enough and then she'll get her ticket and then she'll leave and return to Paris. But she keeps losing her money and then, borrowing from friends. She has a 3-year-old son as well, but it doesn't really seem to bother and affect her. She's not in it for the money. She's not in it for, the clothes and the stylish lifestyle that money brings. She's just in it for the juice, basically. And you have this young, naive man who thinks there's something between them, whereas Jean Moreau just views him as, a lucky horseshoe, essentially, and just something that helps her enable her addiction. It's shot in beautiful black and white. Obviously Demy's more famous for his colour films, but I think this is actually the best looking film in the box, even though it's black and white. Moreau is really good. I mean, I'll admit, um, I'm not really the biggest Jean Moreau fan. Obviously, Catherine Deneuve features in some of these films as well, and again, I have to admit I'm not the biggest Catherine Deneuve fan either. But Jean Moreau is absolutely fantastic in this. It's one of those films that if I gave halves, I would probably give it a 4.5, but I don't, so I give it a 4. But it just has a wonderful, again, it has that kind of melancholy, which is interesting at the start of his career compared with his more famous colourful extravaganzas, which are more, or perceived as being more kind of joyful and more a celebration of life and colour. These first two films, Lola and Bay of Angels, have this wonderful melancholy going through them. Because Jean Moreau is trapped. I mean, I would say the ending perhaps doesn't really ring that true, and to me it is a bit of a kind of false ending, but it's a really excellent film. This one's got a 2K restoration. There's an interview from 1962 with Jean Moreau. There's an interview 2014 with journalist Marie Coleman, co-author of the book, Jacques Demy, and again there's a restoration demonstration. So, as far as I'm concerned, we're 2 for 2 so far. And then we get to 1964, arguably his most famous film, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, starring Catherine Deneuve. This is ridiculously colourful, about life and love in Cherbourg, and it's essentially an operetta. I don't have a problem with musicals. Not biggest fan of operetta, to be honest. And for me, I thought this was a good film, but certainly not one of the greatest films ever made for me. Again, that's just my opinion, and my opinion isn't fact. Catherine Deneuve's fantastic in it. Again, it has wonderful production design, really colourful. And again, this doesn't necessarily end the way you think it will. I do like the ending of the film. But again, to me, that stylistic choice of operetta just doesn't really work for me, at least. This one's got 2K restoration. There's a 2008 documentary, Once Upon a Time, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. There's an interview with film scholar Rodney Hill from 2014. There's a French television interview from 1964 with Demy and composer Michel Legrand, who obviously collaborated in a lot of these films. And there's audio recordings of interviews with Catherine Deneuve from 1983 and Legrand from 1991 at the NFT in London. And there's also a restoration demonstration. It's just, for me, the subject matter, I don't find that engaging, but it looks great, and Deneuve is fantastic in it, but it's just not my cup of tea. And then we have 1967's The Young Girls of Rochefort. Again, this is another one that appears on greatest films lists. And again, for me, this is a subpar version of The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and I thought The Umbrellas of Cherbourg was good. So this one, from 1967, 126 minutes, is way too long. Again, for me, it's just way too long. Colourful, it's one of the most colourful films you'll ever see. It does have Gene Kelly. It did put a smile on my face seeing Gene Kelly. Michelle Piccoli's in it. This is just about a bunch of salespeople who come to a town sing and dance a lot. Catherine Deneuve and her sister, played by her real sister, are the young girls of Rochefort, who always want to go to Paris. There's a sailor who's coming out of the Navy looking for his ideal girl, and he wants to go to Paris. So everybody wants to get away from Rochefort. And they all sing and dance. I do worry about the French Navy, whether they're ever forced to go into conflict because they're too busy singing and dancing. I really found this one a bit of a slog, if I'm being honest. Again, 126 minutes is way too long. It could have easily been 90. But again, it's great to see Gene Kelly. It looks great, really colourful, but to me I just found it overlong and really empty. Kind of all style and no substance, compared with Lola and the Bay of Angels. This is not my bag, but again, my opinion doesn't matter. It's a new 2K digital restoration. There's a television interview of 1966 with Demy and Michel Legrand discussing the music of the film. There's a conversation between Demy biographer Jean-Pierre Berthomme and costume designer Jacqueline Moreau from 2014. There's an episode from Behind the Screen, a 1966 series about the making of the film. And there's Agnes Varda's 1993 documentary, The Young Girls Turn 25. And there's also a trailer. So, I mean, if you're a Jacques Demy fan, this set is essential. It is called the Essential Set, after all. There's a ton of extras. It is a really good set. So next we get to 1970 and Donkey Skin. Again starring Catherine Deneuve and Jean Marais. Now this is the film that I actually bought the set for, because it sounded as though it was up my alley, and I wasn't disappointed. This is probably my second favourite film in the set. Now I will say, this is Jacques Demy doing Jean Cocteau. There's a huge influence of La Belle and La Bête in this, not just because Jean Marais, who was La Bête in Cocteau's film, is in it. Not just because at one point Jean Marais reads a section from Orpheus in the Underworld, and of course he was in Cocteau's Orphée. But the fact you have living statues, that kind of thing, it is Demy doing a colour version of a Cocteau film, essentially. But it is beautifully colourful. The production design is astounding. Again, it's part musical, but it feels more natural. To me, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg and Young Girls of Rochefort feels forced and kind of unreal, whereas the complete fantasy and unreality of Donkey Skin fits perfectly with the fairy tale. It's a famous fairy tale that has been done several times in theatre and books and poetry, and it's about a king who lives with his queen and princess daughter. The queen dies, and the king decides to marry his daughter. I think that's illegal, but never mind. You know what kings are like. So the fairy godmother, played by Delphine Seyrig, she decides to disguise Catherine Deneuve, the princess, in a donkey skin. The king has a donkey that shits out jewellery and gold. And as the fairy godmother tells Catherine Deneuve to ask for more and more ridiculous things and more ridiculous dresses, and then finally the donkey skin from the gold pooping donkey. And she wears this donkey skin in another kingdom to hide from her father. But there's another prince who the colour red is very big for that kingdom. He falls in love and wants to meet Donkey Skin, and of course she's a freak, but it all works out and everybody's happy. It is just a glorious film. See it in as big a screen as you can. Really colourful. Even although you can be cynical and say Demy is just doing Jean Cocteau. This one's a 2K restoration. There's a 1970 interview with Jacques Demy and Catherine Deneuve, Jean Marais and Jacques Perrin. Donkey Skin Illustrated, which is a 2008 programme on the many versions of Charles Perrault's fairy tale, which is an excellent supplement. Donkey Skin and the Thinkers, a 2008 programme on the themes of the film, featuring critic Camille Toubouli. There's a Q&A with Demy from the American Film Institute in 1971, and there's a new English subtitle. So this one I would certainly highly recommend, and I'll certainly be watching time after time, because it's a proper fairy tale told beautifully, and again it's at an economical running time. And finally we have 1982, Une Chambre de Ville, or A Room in Town, I guess. And this is by far my least favourite of the box set. This is Demy repeating himself. So if The Young Girls of Rochefort is a lesser version of The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, then in Chambre de Ville is an even lesser version of The Young Girls of Rochefort, who is a lesser version of The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Again, this is an operetta essentially. This stars Michel Piccoli as well, and Dominique Sanda as his unhappy wife, and she meets somebody else, and again I really didn't like the characters, and again the operetta style at this point feels laboured, and I really struggled with this film. This one's got a 2K restoration, Jacques Demy A to Z, 2014 visual essay by film critic James Quant, a Q&A with Demy from the 1987 Midnight Sun Festival, and we have Agnes Varda's 1995 documentary The World of Jacques Demy about her husband. So again, for me this set was a mixed bag. I'm not gonna lie and sit here and say all these films are masterpieces, because for me half of them really aren't. To be fair, they're all good, with the exception of Une Chambre de Ville. For me, again, my opinion is not fact. But I'm glad to have the set. The extras are fantastic. And, 3 out of 6 are really, really good. A couple of them are almost 5-star films for me. But it's an interesting perspective, because sometimes you have an image of a director and your mental image of what his films would be like actually comes true to a certain extent. There's obviously some filmmakers that you have an opinion of and then it actually changes when you watch the films. But certainly Bay of Angels, Donkey Skin, Lola are all very good to excellent. The other 3, because the subject matter is not really my bag, and the style of them is just not my bag. But again, if you love these films, I know obviously, like I said, Young Girls of Rochefort and Umbrellas of Cherbourg are always very highly rated in these greatest films ever made lists. But again, not for me, but you can't like everything. But all in all, it's a really good set, and if you're a fan of Jacques Demy, you've probably got it already. But if you're on the fence, I would certainly, if you can find it at a decent price, I would pick it up. It's not really a negative review of his films. It's just some just didn't really resonate with me, and like I said, half of them I had that expression that Jacques Demy's got. So thanks very much for watching this In the Frame episode. Please let me know what your favourite Jacques Demy film is, and hopefully you'll join me again for more In the Frame videos. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.